We are. Now,
Jack, you know what this show is called? The Gates of Hell. Matt Gaetz. The Gates of Hell. It's a Matt Gaetz themed show. And just at that moment, you freeze up. At that exact moment, as soon as we start the show, you freeze up. How is that possible? How is it possible that you freeze up the second we start the show? I'm staring at you. You're frozen. No one can hear you. Isn't that infuriating? Like no one can hear? Yeah, you're gone. He's going to come back in again. Oh, look. I got a little notification. Jack Churchill's ready to join the show again. Ready? Here he is. Here he comes. He's back.
I can't believe that happened just as we started.
I just said, I can't believe Jack. Anyway, I'm not sure if you caught it, but guess what we're calling the show tonight? And he froze up again. I think Maggie has like the Ethernet cable to the box, to the cable box, and she's like, beep, 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 beep. He's on. He's off. He's on. He's off. He's on. He's off. He's on. He's off. And so we're going to hear, here he is again. Here he is again. Let's see what happens this time. All right. Jack joining us. Well, welcome back, Jack. And still frozen.
No, I'm not. I'm just kidding. You're fucking with you.
That's funny as hell.
Thank you.
Well,
like this.
Well, tonight's show is going to be called The Gates of Hell.
I think that's what, or The Gates of Heaven, depending on your perspective.
Heaven's Gate, the biggest blockbuster failure in history.
It was a beautifully, beautifully shot film.
It was dark.
Are you? No, it wasn't.
Heaven's Gate wasn't dark? No, I don't mean thematically dark. I mean poorly lit.
No. You, Seth, you're embarrassing me.
I don't know. It's just that I haven't. Well, first of all, I'm not the one that's going on Facebook and telling everybody how great Waterworld is.
Well, if you like steampunk,
I know
you go crazy for the art direction in Waterworld.
I know. Did it win any art direction awards ever?
I doubt it. I doubt it won anything. Do you know now, Seth? You were talking about the lighting in Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
Okay, Seth. Now you don't know this, but if you should know this because it's very important.
Yeah.
This is the first and maybe the only time that Terry Malick put a house on a turntable so that it could turn into the sunset.
Right.
Now, Seth, please.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, Jack, if you want to spend some serious cash, that's one way to do it pre-CGI. Well, yeah. Before we get into Terry Malick, let's thank our sponsor tonight, Jack. I think you're going to love tonight's sponsor, Jewish Space Laser Corps. Tonight's sponsor is sponsored by the Jewish Space Laser Corps, the secret Jewish Space Laser Corps, Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov. And if you want your own Jewish space laser, you can go to descentpins.com or just Google Secret Jewish Space Laser Corps, and you can find any number of T-shirts and pins with Jewish Space Laser Corps on it.
Baseball hat?
I don't see why not.
Because as a hat, that thing would be priceless.
I can only imagine. And so what I'll do is I'm going to go search the interwebs for Jewish Space Laser Corps paraphernalia and all sorts of.
Seth, what a brilliant idea!
Isn't that great? The Jewish Space Laser Corps. Hey, do you remember earlier in the week I posted that little itty bitty piece that I wrote for Facebook, and I was talking about how Matt Gaetz and his buddy Joel when Matt Gaetz showed up at the offices of Merrick Garland late one night, and I created this whole fictional narrative
I
about
loved it. I loved it.
Thank
Your
you, buddy.
writing is so fucking good, Seth. I got to tell you,
Thank you, pal.
you are a true, at the least, you're a wordsmith. I'll be right there. At the best, you're a writer. One second.
All I wanted to do, and I'll tell everybody else, and I think I mentioned this to Jack earlier in the day. All I really wanted to do was get on record as having. Oh yeah. So what's happening in the background here? I think Jack is putting in a little Copenhagen dip. To make the show go smoother. I, on the other hand, matched. I see, Jack, that you're dipping a little Copenhagen there. Is that Copenhagen?
No, it's Grizzly.
Grizzly, right? Because even I don't know. I really see you as kind of an upscale Shaw kind of guy.
I am. When in the circle of Shaw kind of guys, I am very upscale, Seth.
Well, of course, you yourself are upscale, considering the chawing crowds. But what I was saying is Copenhagen, more traditional, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I've gotten used to this. All of it's garbage compared to what they have in Sweden. They have 10 or 12 different kinds in Sweden. And
why don't you just have them send them to you?
I could, but the stuff smells like a barnyard. But it is so delicious, Seth.
Yeah.
It is just mind-bogglingly good.
Note to self, I think I know what's coming for Christmas time for you. Well, I had the Gates of Hell as today's show, and then I, as my little vice for this evening show, I tried to figure out what rhymes with Gates to Hell. Pilsner Urquell. Pilsner Urquell for the Gates to Hell. So that's my soul, my Friday night.
So beer. Who do we have online here with us?
Martha? We don't know. We don't know who's online. We don't know who's talking.
I can tell.
Martha, what's up, girl? Hi, guys, back again. We don't know who that is. And of course, Jack, are you frozen up? No, you're okay. I thought you froze up again. Are you with me, pal? Oh, all right, good.
No, I am. Sorry. I have to do this more than once. I mean, it's not funny yet.
No, it was funny. It's still funny.
Good. So Seth, as we were talking, we haven't talked in probably at least 24 hours, which is extremely rare. So, and I think, Seth, that the way we're going to do this show tonight, because I have been out digging and moving rocks, which is what I do. And my friend Alan Weaver is always amazed that I do for fun what Ukrainian prisoners in the Gulag have to do.
Dude, speaking of Ukrainian prisoners in the fucking Gulag, Gorbachev has listen to me. I was just watching Chernobyl again. Putin has 100,000 Russians ready to storm Minsk and Pinsk.
What the fuck?
And Kiev. Well, it's like he and the Chinese premier are trying to figure out ways to dethrone Biden in America. And my answer to that is fuck around and find out. Fuck around and find out. Fuck around and find out. See what happens. I'm ready. Go.
Yep.
Aside from that, when you broke away to have your nicotine evening break, I was talking before. Well, no, I'm not begrudging you your nicotine evening break. I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of all sorts of tobacco products, as you well know, Jack.
Yes.
I was talking about that Matt Gaetz piece that I wrote for Facebook the other day, and it was all about, hey, I just want to get on record here as having said early on, I think Matt Gaetz is the middle Matryoshka doll. And, if you can imagine a set of 3 Matryoshka dolls with Joel as the little baby Matryoshka doll, and he's the littlest fish, and then Matt Gaetz is the medium-sized Matryoshka doll that sits on the inside, and Donald Trump is the biggest fish, right? So prosecutors go little fish to big fish to biggest fish. Wouldn't it? I mean, I said earlier, I think Matt Gaetz has something on Donald Trump, and I closed the piece by saying, tell me, Matt Gaetz, what do you know about the insurrection? And what do you know about Donald Trump's pedophilia habits? Well, Jack, I'm happy to say that the extremely brilliant Seth Abramson wrote the same thing himself.
Really?
Just this evening. Who knows what will happen? And I certainly won't try to predict it, but I'm sure I'm not the only one, wink, wink, Seth, wink, wink, who feels this Gaetz investigation could turn into something broader, especially if the FBI tries to cut a deal with him to find out what he knows about Trump and the insurrection.
So you were referring to a Russian nesting doll, weren't you? And it was. And what's the word for that in Jewish?
No, it's a Russian word, Matryoshka.
Oh, Matryoshka. I didn't know that.
It's
Jesus.
Yeah, well, it's one of these jobs.
Yes.
Right?
Did you see the cartoon that I saw on Facebook that I posted? It's one of those standing in front of the ticket booth at the movie theater, and the woman says to her, "One, really?"
Really?
Really?
One, really?
But you're right.
I think that sounds reasonable, right?
So let's talk about, obviously, they didn't have to wind up the telephone very much to get our friend to turn on Gaetz.
Oh.
And so I imagine that Gaetz, pinheaded asshole, is not going to take a lot of electricity before he starts telling what he knows.
Oh, no, but I love the idea that he's refusing to leave Congress. I'm like, oh, this just gets better as we go on through the day.
And the Republicans now, at least one, have come out and says he has to leave.
They hate this guy, man.
Oh.
Within that caucus, they hate Matt Gaetz. Oh, my God, they hate Matt Gaetz almost as much as we hate Matt Gaetz.
Almost as much as Ted Cruz.
Do you think they particularly hate Ted Cruz? Or we hate Ted Cruz? Because I know I hate Ted Cruz. Yep. Is it still funny? Or is he? No. See, it's not funny anymore. It's a systems error. Not funny. A systems error. And he's back. Yes. Something is bizarre.
Yes.
Something is bizarre.
Yes. I don't know what.
I keep reintroducing you. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Churchill.
Yay!
Well, Jack.
More in the news, Seth, because you've been paying attention.
Speaking of racists, we lost another old racist today.
Yes, but we loved him in a sort of quiet kind of way.
I don't know. He was always there.
That's exactly right. I mean, you can't say that for some of the other ones.
That's true. Philip, he's going to be missed by those people in England. You know, that the palace said that they don't want anybody going out and, mourning in public or coming to Buckingham Palace or putting flowers at anywhere. They just want people to just, go to a virtual website for this ancient racist who died.
Well,
even into the 80s. I mean, even into the 80s, he was saying crazy shit to Chinese people and like Africans.
True.
Like he went to go like to this formal state affair, and there's an African, African royalty there in full regalia, and he says, "You look like you're ready for bed." Wearing your colorful pajamas there, Mustafa.
Well, that generation, particularly in the royal family, I mean, you're not talking racists, you're talking imperialists, colonials. You're Winston Churchill, same thing, So you have to look at Philip's war record. He saw a lot of shit in the war.
Yeah, he saved his ship.
Yep.
His smart actions saved his own ship.
Yep.
Smart guy, not a coward.
Yep. No bone spurs.
No bone spurs, right? Yeah. And so he won't be coming down for breakfast at Buckingham Palace anytime in the near future, Jack.
Let me ask you a question, Seth.
Please.
Does Donald Trump resent the amount of attention that Gates is getting?
I can't imagine he doesn't, but here's a little nifty piece of it. By the way, these segues you do are fantastic. Why don't you just say anything and then I'll put up a picture of it.
Well, that shows your flexibility, Seth.
It does. Donald Trump, this is interesting news for context. This is a Newsmax headline, so it's the most Trump-friendly headline. Trump puts off presidential library. And why are we not hearing about the Trump presidential library, Jack? Because that would mean that he is a former president.
Oh, yes, I didn't even think of that.
Well, that's why we're not hearing about the Trump library.
Where's it going to be, Seth?
Bayonne, New Jersey, Jack. Bayonne, New Jersey, right next to the methane conversion plant.
Great. Where that dump is, in fact, under the Pulaski Skyway, is still on fire. After 50 years, is still burning.
Yeah, the former president. I actually, Martha, I like to say the former guy, the previous guy.
Mm-hmm.
Previous guy puts off his decision on where to put his previous guy freak show and theme park. $500,000 and a personal photo with Trump gets you in the door. So Donald Trump, that's the cost of admission at the presidential library. He's there at the turnstile handing out tickets. So $500,000.
I got to tell you, this scam with him doing the money bomb with the recurring payments, and not only that, 2 weeks later, the Republican Party does the same thing.
Yeah.
The pre-checked box, but it says, what did it say? If you're a traitor to Trump, uncheck the box, something like that. It's unbelievable. You should see this, Seth. I wish I had a picture of it for you.
Yeah, so the transparency of the desperation, Jack, is really what we should be talking about.
I agree.
And I got to tell you, I had an experience with an oil. I was doing a little work, and I was speaking with somebody in the petroleum business, right? But this guy is somebody we definitely need to talk about.
Who is this?
Now, this young man, this enterprising lad, is the chairman of the Texas GOP. And his name is Allen West. Do you recognize him?
I don't.
Allen West. I think that there is something, to me, having a bead on the GOP. Far be it from me to tell anyone of color what political party they should be a member of. To me, there is something so desperately sad about the human being of color who would be a Republican and saddle up to white supremacists and people who obviously have such a transactional relationship with the skin color of the individual that they're willing to promote that person within their party to the levels that Allen West has attained.
Yes.
On the other hand, there are black conservatives that would say, no, that's not fair because we're allowed to be conservatives as well. I don't know why the Republican Party has turned into the party of overt racism and white supremacy, but this guy is the GOP chair of Texas, and he thinks that Texas still has the right to secede and become their own state.
I'm a fan of his.
You are. You're a fan of his or that idea?
Oh, the idea. And if he has that idea, go for it.
Right. Well, he claims that there's something written into the Texas Constitution. And he was talking in December in a broadcast that or it was promised to Texas when they became part of the United States, that if we voted and decided, we could go back to being our own republic. Well, as it turns out, that's not true, and that's not how it was written. Texas could splinter and become 5 states under certain circumstances, all of which are so esoteric they don't even warrant conversation, not even on our pathetic show. But it's just never going to happen. But I was just thinking, you know, I saw this and I wondered, how pathetic is it? How sad is it? The level of desperation that, you know, that this implies. Desperate conversation number 2, or not desperate, but just I was able to have a conversation with an oil executive, and I wanted to gauge the. I was trying to put a deal together for a guy that was trying to sell a convenience store, right, or 2 convenience stores, and there's no there's no market there for it. But I got to having a conversation with the guy because I served on the board of directors for the Maine Energy Marketers Association, and he knew me and I knew him from 10 years ago. And we have a mutual friend who just had a stroke, and we were speaking about him. But this guy is the CFO of a multi-state billion-dollar oil company. And I asked him what his feeling was on why so many people, mom and pops, are selling convenience stores now. I said, do you think it's because they see ads for electrification and they realize that they now have a sunset on their business? And with regard to the electrification of the American automobile fleet, he hemmed and hawed. They don't have a position and they don't have a strategy yet. Many people think that there are large forces at work in the petroleum industry and elsewhere in politics to stifle the development of alternative energies and technologies, even at this late date. I'm here to report to you that maybe at a certain level that's true, but this guy didn't have a clue, or not a clue, but this guy didn't have a set of policies. This guy didn't have any firm ideas about how his company was going to deal with the electrification of cars and trucks. And it's pressing, and it's current legislation. And I just found that interesting, that, you know, the public perception of some of these happenings legislatively and policy-wise, they just happen organically. And to me, that has an air of terror in it.
Yes.
That means that sometimes nobody's at the wheel. And how many times did we get that feeling during the Trump administration?
It's interesting that they're not really, what they're doing is like the Republican Party. It's really just a delaying action, you know, and that's what the oil thing is. And so if they're trying to stop this, they're not really trying to stop it. They're trying to buy themselves time to figure out what the fuck they're going to do
about this.
Yes.
About this.
She's so cute.
She's a beautiful human being.
Yes. And gorgeous looking.
She radiates inner beauty. She's spectacularly beautiful physically. She's a great leader. She's becoming better. She needs a little help, but she's becoming better. And they don't know how to deal with it. They want to ignore the fact that Black people have a political space in this country, and it's becoming more powerful. Sorry, fuck you. And they don't know how to deal with it, and they're panicking. And yes, this is the official portrait of the Vice President of the United States.
It's wonderful.
And the official portrait of the President of the United States came out today too, Jack. You notice I don't have that one up here?
Yeah, why is that, Seth?
It says I have a picture of an old white man in my wallet. I don't need another one. I don't need another old white man picture.
Did you work on that joke all day long?
No, I just came up with it. I need a beautiful black woman picture. This is her.
Yeah.
She's fantastic, but she's a beautiful human being. So that literally all the photographs I have queued up, other than the photograph that I wanted to spend the majority of the show talking about, and it has to do with the George Floyd case. But it doesn't really have to do with the George Floyd case. It has to do with why the George Floyd case happened in the first place. And I just want to show you a picture and talk about it and see if you agree with me, okay? This is Derek Chauvin killing George Floyd. He's murdering him in this picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Derek Chauvin is crushing his esophagus, his trachea.
Mm-hmm.
And later on in the film, he lifts his toe off the ground and increases the pressure on George Floyd's neck, causing him to asphyxiate and then go into cardiac arrest. Now, I'm not interested in that part of the picture for the purposes of this conversation.
You're going to talk about his hand in his pocket.
Better than that.
Okay.
Talk about the look on his face and where he's looking.
Mm-hmm.
And if you zoom this picture out or had a picture from above, what you would see is a number of black people standing 10 or 15 feet away,
screaming at him,
begging him to stop, and recording it at the same time with this very phone.
Yep.
And what's happening here is that George Floyd was murdered not because of who he was. George Floyd was murdered because of the technology employed at the scene of this crime. George Floyd was murdered because this cop was saying, fuck you, to the people taking the pictures and telling him what to do with his authority.
That's right. I agree.
Thank you. And so what we're witnessing now is the intersection of technology and culture, and it didn't feel right. This whole thing felt wrong. It felt like we couldn't explain it. That's what's happening.
Yes.
That's the answer. And every single time technology and culture and authority intersect with each other, we have an entirely different dynamic with each other. If I ran into Derek Chauvin after this, and I hadn't seen this picture, and I hadn't witnessed him kill anybody, I would refer to Derek Chauvin by my experience of listening to cops all day on the scanner, and understanding the cops that I know in my life, who more often than not are interested in protecting the public space. But when you introduce challenges to traditional structures, which is what I think happened here, and you reinforce those and you reinforce those, and the entire time I think that inside, some puny little reptilian brain like Derek Chauvin's, that is incapable of emotional processing on some level, that harbors tremendous personal dysfunction, anger, rage.
I think I was talking to a police friend of mine today about Chauvin. He said, it's too simple to call him a racist.
Right.
He was a bad fucking cop.
Right. He was a bad cop. But that doesn't explain it. This explains it.
Yes. Oh, I understand.
He's not killing a black guy because he's a black guy. He's not killing a black guy because he was hard to control physically. Mm-hmm. He's killing a black guy to say, I am, this small little person with his frail compensations is being challenged by a wall of black people with cameras. And they're saying, no, we are the American people and we are recording you and you work for us.
But what he is saying,
fuck you. I have the authority and I'm going to kill this fucking black guy to show you what my authority is. And now he's in the court.
look at the hand in his pocket. That sells everything. I'm not afraid of you. Fuck you. I'm just standing here with my hand in my pocket.
And now,
And
I'd like to make a comparison for you. And you tell me if you think this comparison is apt. That attitude that he has is the same attitude amplified that the insurrectionists had as they stormed the Capitol building.
Absolutely.
You don't have the authority, black people. It's our country and it's our authority. And we've been programmed to assume that.
Yep.
We have a fundamental misunderstanding of our own place in our own fucking democracy.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a fundamental misunderstanding of black people's place in this democracy,
Mm-hmm.
or brown people or Asian people's place in this democracy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fundamental misunderstanding. And when it gets put through the system, as Derek Chauvin is being put through the system now, or as the insurrectionists are being put through the system in the future, and as Trump is prosecuted for his crimes, the disconnect is going to be profound.
I don't think calling it a misunderstanding is apt, because a misunderstanding implies that you can find some common ground by understanding it's a misunderstanding. I don't think that's possible. Okay.
All right. That's fair. Tell me what you would call it.
You'd be better at finding the word than I would, but it could be called a lot of things for a lot of reasons. But
let's call it a dysfunctional understanding.
I would think that would be more apt, because a misunderstanding implies that if the parties talked it out, they would find common ground. This is not one of those things, Seth.
What do you think of the premise itself?
Oh, I think it's wonderful, but I think what's even more important here is your analysis of what his body language is saying, given the ability to zoom out or cut to the reverse and see what is really happening here. It is a total fuck you asshole statement. And I tell you, he's getting his ass handed to him in court.
Well, it's what happens when your ideas of what our democracy are come into conflict with the founders' idea of democracy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what the Constitution actually says and what our state constitutions actually say. It's the same conflict that would force the governor of Georgia to sign a voter suppression act. These voter suppression laws are Derek Chauvin.
Unbelievable. Now,
it's the same thing.
I am still fascinated by the right getting into a conflict with big business because of this. That fascinates me, because they've always been on the same page. And this is probably the biggest rift that we've seen between big business, and the Republican Party.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It goes to show that, like, the level of, like, the spinning out of control desperation that the GOP is going through.
Right.
Doesn't it seem to you that the crazier the statements and the more dysfunctional the behavior, read here, Matt Gaetz, Joel Greenberg,
mm-hmm.
These guys that would, this guy that thinks it's the job of the tax collector in Florida to walk around with a gun on his hip and a badge around his neck, stopping women for speeding and screwing girls, 17-year-old girls on a web. Wow. Are you out of your fucking mind? You're an elected official with a badge. What are you, nuts? Yeah, the answer is yes. 100% batshit fucking crazy. Lost Jack again. He'll be back in a second. Well, welcome back, buddy boy.
Thank you. This is a bit unnerving,
Don't worry about it.
Take it.
The internet's been weird recently, man.
So, you know who's really in the news these days?
Who? Happened again. Stick with us, Martha. He'll be back in a second. He's talking about who's been in the news these days recently. I'm thinking it's going to be Ghislaine Maxwell. And I think he's going to be talking about Ghislaine Maxwell complaining about the septic smell in the federal holding facility in Brooklyn. Let's see if that's what it is. Let's see if that's who you think has been in the news recently, Jack.
Yes, Hunter.
Oh, revenge porn.
Hunter Biden. He's a piece of work, that boy.
Dude, he's a drug addict. Every family's got a drug addict.
That's true.
He's an American story. If you can't, he's got a sickness, man. You can't. These aren't perfect people. These are human beings. But what about Hunter Biden did you think was aberrant?
I don't think it's not that. It's the amount of news he's getting. It's the amount of press that he's getting.
You mean the revenge porn recently, or
yeah.
They show naked pictures of whatever. Jesus Christ! I mean, is there anybody in the country that doesn't have a computer loaded with the porn sites that they visit? What the fuck is this, a secret?
Oh, it's not so much that. It's just the amount of money that he spent on. He could be. I hate to say it, but he could easily be part of the Gates Foundation.
Yeah, the difference is, dude, is that this guy admits that he's a drug addict. He's in treatment, and Matt Gaetz is trying to pretend that it's all normal and everyday stuff. And the problem is that that you are known by the people that you surround yourself with. And Donald Trump surrounds himself with the world's worst people.
Florida, talking about the world's worst people, Seth. Florida.
DeSantis. Have you seen that?
Oh, my God.
See what happened with DeSantis today?
Tell me.
Google took down his videos dealing with coronavirus because of misinformation.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So we have corporate America having a bit of a falling out with the right. And then we have the real players, the social media, falling out with the right. What does this mean?
Well, it means, I guess, honestly, we all have experiences with people who are mentally ill who we find it difficult to deal with. And conservatives in America currently are suffering from a cultural mental illness as they see the things that they thought they could take for granted taken away from them, as they fail to deal with the river of paradigm shift, as they cling to the side and get torn apart. And, people that are getting torn apart start to panic. I mean, a drowning man will drown, hey, Noel, what's up, buddy? Okay, he likes Hunter Biden, and he knows about his crack problems. Well, that's a healthy, fully formed attitude.
And I agree with him 100%. What I'm saying is the amount of press time he's getting is incredible.
Yeah, but they're clinging, dude. I mean, at a certain point. By the way, Mike Lindell is suing, or check that, not suing. Mike Lindell has hired a private investigator, Jack. You want to know why?
Tell me.
He's wondering why Fox News won't have him on anymore. So he's hired a private investigator, and he was on, and what show was he on to talk about this? The Steve Bannon Show. The Steve Bannon Show. And Jack's out. He'll be back again in a second. So he's back.
This is what this is.
It's on your end, baby boy.
This is Show Us, Interrupt Us. Like Mitch and Mitt.
We're having tantric show today, Jack.
Here's an interesting radical left assault on our country. Mitch McConnell and Mitt Romney lead fury at Biden's court packing commission.
Okay.
Are they together on something?
I can't imagine that they would be, but I think that we are getting into the part of the political cycle when Mitt Romney and Joe Manchin, moderates, both towards the center, each in their own party, need to make conservative bones. So Joe Manchin is saying fuck you to the filibuster reform and fuck you to infrastructure. And Mitt Romney is saying fuck you to court packing. And they need the money, Noel says. Yeah.
It's interesting that Mitt, who has been so much on our side for so long, needs to do this.
But all these people have bases. They all have bases that they need to appeal to. You know, that the political rebirth of Mitt Romney might run really well on the pages of the New York Times, but in Provo, it's not so. On Main Street in Provo and Salt Lake, they've got another thing coming.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a difficult constituency for a number of reasons, including magic underwear.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen the magic underwear?
I've seen a picture of it. Looks like a corset.
Oh, so it's not comfortable, you don't think?
I think it's relatively comfortable, but not comfortable the way jockey shorts are.
Is it expensive?
I imagine that if you get it some special edition, it may be. I mean, I don't know.
Hold on. I just want to find out, you know, is there a special edition for like Hanukkah? Magic Hanukkah?
I can imagine them selling a special edition magic underwear.
Okay. Because what I was thinking, just hear me out on this. I know it's a stretch, but maybe next week's show, we should do wearing magic underwear and see if the show's any better.
We should, or we should just research it and find out about it, because I'm sure there are very few people that really know. And if you're watching the show, Noel, and you know something about magic underwear, or whether it's a very, very closely kept secret. By the way, on Netflix, I don't have the name of the show. It's a documentary about an art theft in 1990, I think, in Chicago, from the Gardner Museum. I think it's Chicago. Philadelphia. Where was it?
Boston.
You're right, you are. It's a fascinating show. Have you seen it?
I have. And the guy who's the detective is amazing.
Yes. But I mean, the fact now that they can create documentaries about anything, series, not just documentaries, but series that are fascinating, is I'm so ecstatic about this. That
we have gone into the greatest content age in the history of content ages.
Yes.
You know, I was thinking about, I was watching Chernobyl today, and they imprison, and the scene, they imprison one of the scientists, and there she is on the cot, with her lab coat and her raincoat, for 4 days on end without another human being in the dark. And I thought, what would happen to us with the programming, with the screen dependence that we have? How would we deal with being by ourselves in the quiet?
We're fairly intelligent, but I got to tell you, if I lose the internet for an hour or two, I slowly start to freak the fuck out.
I know. You call me. Like, what are we going to talk about? I don't fucking know.
I know.
I can't talk. I got no internet. I'm going to go out and have to shoot somebody.
It is. We have become painfully dependent upon this.
But it's made us more interesting people. For instance, Martha says, or you could wear the magic bathrobe. which I think is hysterically funny.
Is that a comment about my wardrobe for this evening?
One guess. The coldest game, Noel, is exactly right. Jack was talking about that last week.
Yes.
The chess series.
Wonderful.
I've been so fucking busy. I have yet to sit down.
It's worth watching.
I told you I'd watch it. I feel terrible. I haven't freaking watched it.
Don't feel terrible, Seth. You can only get through a number of things. And there is so much product out there now. And some of it is so good that really, I mean, it's mind-boggling. I mean, just besides for the theatrical films and series being better than they ever did before, you have this whole docu-series thing that's absolutely wonderful.
You know, I regret the fact that you hate American football, because this part of the season is so much fun with the subtle fuck yous between these organizations that I wish I could share that with you. But the NFL draft is coming up in 3 weeks, and speaking of Mormons, there's a kid that the Jets are going to draft that nobody thought was going to be anything before this year, and he's turned into the next, Joe Montana. So hopefully my Jets will end up with him and will turn into something. But the drama of the NFL it eclipses every other potential sport. And I don't know why. It's got so much going for it, because there's so much on the line. These millions of dollars and these athletes, and they ruin themselves and their life is over, and you get to see it on TV. You get to see their professional life ending on TV when they get a catastrophic injury. And there's 100% injury rate in the NFL. So just the drama of it, I'm sad that I can't share it with you. But now you would be genuinely enjoying yourself with these draft analysis.
I doubt it. I mean, if you want to see drama, watch professional bicycle racing. That's got drama.
Yeah, you were addicted to the Tour de France.
I am. It is. It's like any sport. I mean, if you understand it, you find layer upon layer of interest in it.
I'm telling you, F1 was fantastic, though, wasn't it, Bud?
I thought it was wonderful because once again, they become geniuses at presenting documentary material, because they use dramatic film techniques and writing techniques for novels and whatever. They use those same techniques in a documentary form.
Right.
And they make you wait for it forever. And it is so reinforcing, and so it's absolutely wonderful. Contemporary filmmaking has gotten. I grew up with the Indy 500. That's not really a race. That's like a NASCAR on steroids.
No, I mean, but it's an old American F1 race. It's kind of like, Ferrari and the road racing in Europe had its counterpart in the United States with basically the same kind of cars. So it's interesting to watch the parallels between that one race, the Indy 500, and all of F1 that happens, in Europe. But, you're not like a car guy, you're a motorcycle guy. And now he's gone. I don't know. Usually I would consider that like and then they have the brain injuries and shoot people, is exactly right. Here he is. He's back.
Boy, is that bizarre.
Yeah, it is. But you've got a squirrel munching on the cables, man. That's what's going on with you.
I've got so much shit going on here. It looks like Cheyenne Mountain in Wyoming. I mean, it's just. So I guess that Grizzly Ann is still whining about her jail cell conditions.
I told everybody while you were gone that you were going to talk about that.
Oh, how did you know that?
I knew it. I knew you were going to. I said, I bet Jack's going to come back and talk about Grizzly Ann and the septic smell in the Brooklyn Federal House of Detention.
Now, I wonder what it's going to take for her to turn. What's going on there?
I don't know. I don't know. I would love it. I mean, why is it taking so long for, well, we'll wait for Jack to get back. But the question that we're going to dive into here is, why is it taking so freaking long? And Jack, the question is, why is it taking so long for all of these cases to come to fruition? Because it's the same case. Matt Gaetz is the same case.
Maybe Seth.
Grizzly Ann is the same case.
Maybe they're sweating her.
But how many different fucking people? What's going to happen? What's the end game here? We're going to find out, like 2022 or 2024, approaching the election, when there are all these prosecutions that'll do tremendous political damage, will drive the stake through the heart of the Republican Party. We'll
That's
be like,
the idea.
That's what they were waiting for.
That's the idea, Seth. It's all timing.
Yeah, but it's infuriating because we just got done talking about our addiction to screens. Let's go, people. Come on. Let me see some freaking Cyrus Vance. Dude, come on, man.
Seth, when I was talking about these doco series, the brilliance of them now is they make you wait. And that is what is happening here. The more you wait, the more you're going to pay attention.
And Noel says his mom worked in the Brooklyn House of Detention in the 1970s.
Wow.
I'm not going to say that explains anything, Noel, by the way.
That must have been really fun place to work. What was she doing there, Noel? What was
there's a women's side and a men's side in the Brooklyn
I
House.
understand that. Was she a guard? Was she a cook? Was she a whatever? There are a number of different métiers.
Yeah, that's a tough job, dude.
Yeah.
That's a tough job. You're surrounded by scumbags all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I told you my friend who spent 2 years at Dannemora.
Oh, that's like being in Congress.
What's that?
That's like working in Congress.
Oh, man.
Surrounded by scumbags all day long.
He said, Jack, when you walk into a subway car sometimes and you know that everybody in the car is a fucking felon.
Yeah.
He said, that's what Dannemora is like. Awful. Did you see Escape at Dannemora?
I did. It was brilliant.
Oh, what a wonder. Directed by, what's his name, the comedian?
I forget.
Oh, what's his name? Ben Stiller?
Did he direct that?
Yes.
Jesus
Fabulous. Christ. Fabulous.
He's a Jew from Brooklyn, by the way.
So what you want me to say?
So, what else is new?
What? Yes. He went to Brooklyn Friends School. He was a year behind you, Seth.
Yiddish Kopf. Yiddish Kopf. Oh, my God. She did bookkeeping at the Brooklyn House of Detention.
See? You have to specifically.
You have to account for all the different jobs.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. You know who hasn't chimed in today? You know who hasn't chimed in tonight? Jim. Jim hasn't chimed in tonight.
Jim is probably not watching.
Why? He watched last week. We had Jim participate last week.
Seth, I mean, be honest with yourself, as I am. This show is ultimately forgettable. It really is.
Oh, it's the most forgettable thing on television.
It's like you and I jerking off, and we haven't talked in a day or two, so you fill me in.
But it's the same thing as like as being on the bench in Camden, and then just having a couple of buddies come by and sit on the bench with us. This is a virtual edition of that. So it's like a collection of old friends hanging out with each other.
I've been seeing people on the bench in the last couple of days, and it's been absolutely wonderful. I'm
coming out tomorrow, by the way.
Oh, are you?
I'm going to be hanging out. I got to get out, man.
Oh, please do. I got
an appointment at the VIP for a balance and rotation, and I'm going to. That's at 2:00.
Is that
So
a car thing or is that a
just
physical?
balancing and rotating the tires.
Oh, I got you. I thought you were talking about a physical.
No, no. So I'm just gonna. I have a 2:00 appointment. So what I'll do is and I lost Jack again, and it's important for him to hear, what my schedule is. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna meet him probably around noon. So Jack,
About
so what I was saying is I was probably thinking about getting into Camden maybe around noon or something like that.
that would be perfect.
Just hang out, have a cup of coffee on the bench.
What we'll do is we'll get a little lunch at French and Braun
Why not?
and sit on the bench. I mean, how cool would that be?
Why not? I've got my whole new Russian mobster aesthetic. I'm dressing in black Adidas jumpsuits now.
Yes.
And I've been getting them in the mail, Jack. I just want you to know. And they're exceedingly comfortable. It's my new look. And I hopped on a conference call with my coworkers today. And then, well, he's going to take off again. It's weird. Like I'm glad that you get to, that you get to see this too. So you don't think that I'm crazy, while we're watching Jack pop in and out of the show. And now his camera's not even working. So he's going to have to leave again and then come back in again. Let's see what happens. Doesn't know. I don't think his camera's working. I think his system is shitting the bed. I think that's what it is. I think he's got to come back out and in and out and in. Anyway, I get I get on a conference call with my coworkers today, and the owner of my company wearing a black Adidas jumpsuit. It's like we're all in the Russian mob. It's fantastic. I love it. I wonder if I'm going to hear back from Jack at all today. I don't know. I could. It's possible that he shows back up again. He's been popping in and out. So interact with the thread. Maybe you have a good book we can read. Martha, I read the last book that I read. I'm not sure if you've read Colin Woodard is a main author, and I'm not sure if you've read American Nations yet. Have you? Maybe talk in the text about that. If you haven't read Colin Woodard's American Nations, all right, here we go.
Hi,
Jack,
so I can join you on the telephone.
Are you having a problem joining in, buddy boy?
My whole computer froze up, so that there was some problem lurking in the wings there.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a little technology problem. Martha said, "Hey, maybe you have a good book that you could recommend. Maybe we can close the show with that, bud, because it's been about an hour on the nose, so we're about ready to wrap up anyway. But I was going to suggest Colin Woodard's American Nations for anybody that hasn't read it. It's a revelation. It's filled with political epiphanies about what the nature of the 11 separate nations that make up the American voting structure look like. So if you haven't read American Nations, please do. I believe you can download it on Audible. It's certainly a Kindle book that you can get, and you can buy the hard copy from Amazon. Jack read it. I read it. It was recommended by the late, great Leonard Lookner to me. Leonard Lookner, who we all miss kind of desperately. So, Jack, I'm going to... we're restarting our computer, are we, bud?
Yeah, but it'll probably take a little while. Do you think you can hold your own for a minute or two?
Yeah, what I was saying is it's about an hour, and I'm going to wrap up the show anyway. So I figured I'd do it that way, and we can re-adjourn next week when your computer's in better shape.
Trouble is, I'd never shut it off.
Or restart next week. Yeah. All right, yeah. Jack. Well, thank you, buddy. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for struggling through your technical difficulties today. I will say goodbye to you first, and then I will say goodbye to the buddies in a second. So thanks, buddy, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll hang out on the bench.
You got it.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye. And for you, buddies, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am going to be available on the bench in Camden with Jack at noon tomorrow if you guys want to hang out. If not, we'll see you here next week, Friday, 8 p.m., same time. Thanks, everybody. Good night.